Search goes on in San Francisco for the man known as the Zodiac Killer.
The psychotic killer has already murdered 5. The Zodiac Killer seems to crave publicity. He sent letters and cryptograms to newspapers and the police.
Police are now convinced that it was the killer of a San Francisco cab driver who sent in a swatch of bloody cloth with a letter to the San Francisco Chronicle.
School children make fine targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning. Just shoot out the front tire and then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out.
I have always felt a gut feeling that he was not dead and that he was out there somewhere and that he would communicate.
And the kid said, the money's in my pocket. He said, I don't want the money, all I want to do is kill you. The boy asked him, said, you really mean that? And he said, yes, I mean it. Says, well, he said, if you're going to do it, said, kill me first, because I can't stand to see the girl be stabbed. He said, well, I'll do that. So he started stabbing the kid.
This guy is a pathological psycho killer.
How long have you had those headaches, Sam?
Since I killed a kid.
We have no known motive at this time. However, we're not overruling any possibility.
I'm not the damn Zodiac.
In April 1970, a letter arrived at the San Francisco Chronicle. It began the way all his letters began. This is the Zodiac speaking. Near the end of the letter, he wrote 4 words followed by a 13-symbol cipher he claimed contained his real name. My name is. Those 4 words are followed by symbols that have never been solved. Over 50 years of cryptographers, mathematicians, amateur investigators, and professional codebreakers have worked on that cipher. The name inside it, if there is one, has never been extracted. He is still out there. Or he died. Or he is in prison for something else. Nobody knows. The case is officially open with the California Department of Justice, the city of Vallejo, and the Napa and Solano County sheriffs. The San Francisco Police Department marked it inactive in 2004 and reopened it 2 years later. The most famous unsolved murder case in American history has no resolution, no suspect in custody, and no name attached to it after more than 50 years of investigation. 5 confirmed victims, 2 survivors, 4 ciphers sent to newspapers, at least 20 letters. A piece of a dead taxi driver's shirt mailed to a newsroom as proof, and somewhere in Northern California, a man who called himself the Zodiac went home after each attack, read the newspaper coverage of what he had done, and decided when and whether to write back. This is everything we know, and everything we still do not. The first confirmed Zodiac attack happened on the night of December 20, 1968, on Lake Herman Road in Benicia, California. David Faraday was 17 years old. Betty Lou Jensen was 16. It was their first date. David had driven them to a quiet spot on a remote road seeking some privacy. They were sitting in the car when a man approached, fired a shot through the rear window, and then shot both of them outside the vehicle as they tried to run. Betty Lou was hit 5 times in the back. David was killed by a single shot to the head at close range. No witnesses, no suspect, no apparent motive. Police had nothing. 7 months later, on the night of July 4, 1969, a man approached a parked car in the Blue Rock Springs parking lot in Vallejo. Darlene Ferrin, 22, and Michael Mageau, 19, were sitting together. The man opened fire. Darlene was killed. Michael was shot multiple times in the face and body and survived by losing consciousness and lying still. As the attacker walked away, he heard Mageau cry out and came back to shoot them both again before driving off. Less than an hour after the attack, a man called the Vallejo Police Department from a payphone. He gave them the location of the crime scene, told them he had killed the 2 teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman Road, and hung up. He had just named himself as the killer of both attacks before any newspaper had connected them. He was watching the investigation and staying ahead of it. On July 31, 1969, 3 Bay Area newspapers, the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. Each received an identical handwritten letter. The letters claimed responsibility for both attacks, included details known only to investigators, and each contained 1/3 of a 408-character cipher the writer demanded be printed on the front page, or he would go on a kill rampage. All 3 papers printed the cipher within a week. A civilian couple in Salinas, Donald and Betty Harden, cracked the cipher within days. The decoded message read in part, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all." The spelling was poor throughout. The logic was chilling throughout. On August 1, 1969, a 4th letter arrived at the Chronicle. It began, "Dear Editor, this is the murderer of the 2 teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman and the girl on the 4th of July. He signed it with a symbol resembling the crosshairs of a gun sight. He named himself. He had chosen to be called the Zodiac." On the afternoon of September 27, 1969, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were sitting on the shore of Lake Berryessa in Napa County when a man approached them wearing a black executioner's hood with a crosshairs symbol on the chest. He tied them both with rope he had brought with him. He stabbed Brian multiple times and stabbed Cecilia over a dozen times. Before leaving, he walked to Hartnell's car and wrote on the door in black felt pen, "Vallejo, 12/20/68, 7/4/69, Sep 27/69 6:30, by knife." He was keeping a record. He called the Napa police from a payphone to report a double murder at the lake. Brian survived. Cecilia died 2 days later. On the night of October 11, 1969, the Zodiac hailed a taxi cab in San Francisco. The driver was Paul Stein, 29 years old. The Zodiac shot him once in the head from the back seat and took his wallet and a piece of his shirt before walking away. 3 teenagers in a house nearby watched the attack from a second-floor window and called police. Officers were radioed a description of a white male adult. 2 officers stopped and spoke briefly to a man matching the description on the street. They let him go. They had been radioed the wrong race by a dispatcher error. The man they stopped and released may have been the Zodiac. Nobody has ever confirmed it. A letter arrived at the Chronicle 2 weeks later, containing a piece of Paul Stein's blood-soaked shirt. "This is the Zodiac speaking," it began. He wrote that he was angry the police had nearly caught him, and that he intended to change his method of collecting souls. He threatened to shoot out the tire of a school bus and pick off the children as they came bouncing southward. The school buses in Northern California ran with a police escort for the next several weeks. The Zodiac sent at least 20 letters to Bay Area newspapers and police between 1969 and 1974. He sent ciphers, greeting cards, a piece of a victim's shirt, a scrap of a victim's clothing, and a Halloween card to a Chronicle reporter that read from your secret pal. He sent a letter to attorney Melvin Belly that said, "Please help me, I cannot remain in control for much longer." He sent a letter claiming he had placed a bomb under the dashboard of a school bus that would go off when the bus had gone over a certain number of miles. No bomb was found. No school bus was attacked. Whether the bomb existed or was a psychological instrument is unknown. The letters varied in tone in a way that investigators found difficult to map onto a consistent psychological profile. Some were demanding and confident. Some were erratic and almost pleading. Some contained detailed technical claims about explosives. Some contained childlike drawings. The spelling was consistently poor in ways that some analysts believed were deliberate and others believed were genuine. The handwriting analysis produced conflicting conclusions. He sent 4 ciphers. The first, the 408-character cipher sent in 3 parts to 3 papers in July 1969, was solved within days by the civilian couple in Salinas. The second, a 340-character cipher sent in November 1969, remained unsolved for 51 years. In December 2020, during the pandemic lockdown, a team of 3 amateur investigators working remotely across 3 countries cracked it. A computer programmer in the United States, a mathematician in Australia, and a warehouse worker in Belgium. The decoded message began, "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me." The 3rd and 4th ciphers have never been solved. The 13-symbol cipher from April 1970, the one preceded by the words "My name is," remains unbroken. One cryptologist ranked the Zodiac's unsolved ciphers as second in difficulty only to the Voynich manuscript, a 15th-century text that has also never been decoded. The letters stopped in 1974. Nobody knows why. The investigation into the Zodiac murders was complicated from the beginning by the fact that the attacks occurred across multiple counties and multiple jurisdictions that did not consistently share information with each other. Benicia, Vallejo, Napa County, and San Francisco each had separate investigative teams working pieces of the same case with varying degrees of coordination. Fingerprints were recovered from the taxicab. They did not match any known suspect. DNA was eventually extracted from the saliva on envelopes and stamps used in the letters. It has been tested against every serious suspect considered over 50 years. No match has been confirmed. The suspect most consistently associated with the case is Arthur Lee Allen, a former schoolteacher from Vallejo who had been institutionalized in 1975 for child molestation. Allen had been named as a suspect by a friend who said he had spoken about wanting to hunt human beings and call himself Zodiac before the murders began. He owned a Zodiac brand watch with a crosshair symbol on the face identical to the one used in the killer's signature. His handwriting did not match the letters. His fingerprints did not match. His DNA did not match. He died in 1992 without being charged. The case against him remains entirely circumstantial. In 2021, a group called the Case Breakers announced they had identified the Zodiac as a man named Gary Francis Poste, a house painter who died in 2018. They claimed anagram evidence from the ciphers and physical resemblance to police sketches. Law enforcement agencies reviewed their evidence and did not find it sufficient to close the case. The case remains open. The Zodiac Killer murdered at least 5 people across 4 attacks in a 10-month period between December 1968 and October 1969. He claimed in his letters to have killed as many as 37 people. Investigators have never been able to confirm or refute that number. The letters stopped in 1974. What happened after 1974 is unknown. He wrote in his first decoded cipher that he was collecting slaves for his afterlife in paradise, and that he would not give his name because that would slow down the collecting of slaves. This framing, killing as a form of afterlife preparation rather than as compulsion or anger, is unusual in the forensic literature on serial offenders. Most behavioral analysts who have studied the case describe it as performed rather than genuine, a narrative constructed for public consumption rather than a sincere belief. Whether that assessment is correct is impossible to verify without knowing who the Zodiac was. What the case left behind in American culture is almost as significant as the crimes themselves. It created an entirely new category of true crime engagement, the civilian investigator working an open case through publicly available evidence. Thousands of people have spent years analyzing the letters, the ciphers, the crime scene details, and the suspect profiles. Annual informal meetings of Zodiac researchers still occur. Websites dedicated to the case have operated continuously for decades. The cottage industry of Zodiac investigation has produced dozens of books, several documentaries, and David Fincher's 2007 film, which won no awards, but is considered by critics and criminologists alike to be among the most accurate representations of what a long, cold investigation actually feels like. Robert Graysmith, The Chronicle cartoonist who spent 13 years on the case and wrote the book that became the foundation for Fincher's film, described what working the Zodiac investigation does to a person. It consumes everything around it. It takes marriages and careers and replaces them with filing cabinets full of photocopies and handwriting samples, and ciphers that will not decode. He was right about all of it, and he still believed Arthur Lee Allen was the Zodiac when he died. Nobody has proven him wrong. Nobody has proven him right. The name in the 13-symbol cipher has never been extracted. The file is open. The case has no resolution. The Zodiac, whoever he was, is the only serial killer in this series who may have simply walked away. 5 confirmed dead. 2 survivors who have spent their lives living inside what happened to them on remote roads and lake shores in Northern California more than 50 years ago. Brian Hartnell, who played dead while the Zodiac stabbed him and survived, became a lawyer. Michael Mageau, who was shot 4 times and left for dead at Blue Rock Springs, gave police the most detailed description of the Zodiac's face they ever received. He was shown a lineup photograph of Arthur Lee Allen in 2009, 30 years after the attack, and identified him. Arthur Lee Allen had been dead for 17 years by then. The 340 cipher was solved in 2020 by 3 people who had never met in person, working across 3 time zones during a pandemic. 51 years after it was mailed. The message said the killer hoped investigators were having lots of fun trying to catch him. The 13-symbol cipher that begins with the words "My name is" has not been solved. Whatever name is in there, if any name is in there, has not been extracted after 50 years. The California Department of Justice maintains the case as open. The city of Vallejo maintains the case as open. The Napa County Sheriff maintains the case as open. Somewhere in the public record, in a newspaper archive, in a solved cipher, in an envelope licked by someone who is either long dead or very old, the answer to this case exists. It has not been found yet. Subscribe to Cold Case Archives. Next episode, we go to Florida in 1989, where a highway produced a killer the legal system spent years trying to categorize, and an actress spent a career trying to humanize. Eileen Wuornos, the case that still divides criminologists on the question of whether what happened was murder or survival. The file is never really closed. It is only waiting to be reopened.